Day 20, Reading Time by Chriztian Steinmeier. We recently had a client request to add the ever so slightly popular reading time number of minutes to articles in the blog section of their site. This article is a rundown of thoughts on how to do this and how we implemented it. At the time, we had a student developer at the office, and I tasked him with the job of figuring out what was needed to accomplish something like this. It didn't take long for him to find a couple of lines of JavaScript that did the trick, basically something like this. A JavaScript function to calculate reading time for a DOM element. On the surface level, this looks like it's enough, right? I mean, 1, it does the job. 2, it's progressively enhancing the article. If your browser doesn't do JavaScript, you're not losing any functionality. You're just not getting a heads up on the time you'll need to spend reading. There's always more. Having done this job for many years now, I know that when a client asks for something, there's usually a lot of hidden but implied extras compiled into that single remark of, oh, and it should show the reading time on the article. This was no different, of course, as the blog section had a front page with a card-style layout where the latest articles were featured, and I was already willing to bet my entire month's salary that they'd want the reading time displayed there as well, since that's the place where someone actually decides if they should click into and read the article. Why is that a problem? Asked the student. I'll let you think about it too, for a few seconds. Then continue reading. Not enough data. When we're rendering the teaser card for an article, we're only rendering a couple of properties, typically the title and a teaser and the author's name and or photo, not the full article. So our getReadingTimeInMinutes function would at most report back that this card would be read in about a minute, not what we wanted. So at this point we start bouncing ideas for how we could handle this scenario, all of which seem to be one or two approaches in disguise. 1, put the article's text inside a hidden div so it can be read from the script. 2, do an AJAX request back to the server to get the article's content and calculate on that. While they are both certainly viable options, there's no way I'd okay stuffing the entire article text inside a hidden div just to get a reading time number. For both options, it's worth mentioning that it's not even as simple as it sounds, because the articles themselves are built with a block builder, so the actual content is spread across different blocks, aka tons of JSON, which, when rendered on the article page, are handled by each of their own partials. So not straightforward, actually. The way that could possibly work. So of course we arrived at the realisation that the simple and very Umbraco-y solution would be to have a reading time property on the document type that we could render anywhere needed. This would also make it available to everyone, not just browsers with JavaScript enabled. But how and when should this property be calculated then? Having the client fill it in was obviously an option, but it should be the last resort. A better way would be to have the property be read-only, i.e. a label type, and then see if we could update it from code at some point. Turns out you can do exactly that, since Umbraco throws various events during a content's item's lifecycle, and if we hook into the content service saving event, we have access to the article being saved, thus allowing us to update its data before saving. But how? The thing is, how do we actually do this? On the server, we can't just use JavaScript from earlier, and even if we rewrite it in C#, we're still missing a way to get the raw text of the article from all of its blobs of JSON. What we really want to use is the rendered article, because writing a secondary rendering, i.e. on an API endpoint or similar, just to get the article's content, means that every time we add a new block to use on an article, we'd need to remember to also write the alternate rendering, which is asking for trouble. So we started digging, and lo and behold, there is a way to render a piece of content that does so using the assigned templates and layout, etc. It's called Render Template, and it's available on the Umbraco helper. This was an Umbraco 7 site, but I'd be surprised if the same possibility isn't still available in 8 and 9. So this is what we ended up with. The event handler used to update the reading time in minutes property on an article when it's saved. The get reading time from rendered article looks something like this. The C# of the initial JavaScript function to calculate reading time for an article. And this uses another custom helper, extract text, where the HTML document stuff is from the HTML agility pack. So there you have it. We got a request for a feature, had an initial idea for it, found out it didn't solve all the necessary use cases, and then revised it to handle the updated scenarios. Please don't hesitate to throw any questions my way, or if you think we're doing it wrong and have alternate ways to do something similar. Thanks for reading, and have a fantastic holiday.